Hi, folks. Welcome to Photoshop Wednesdays on Adobe Live. My name is Sin Lagos, and today I will be your host. Joining us also is my friend and fellow creative, Navy. Hi, Navy.
Hello guys, Navy here. I'm going to be showing you around a little bit around Photoshop, a little bit about photography that I slowly have embedded in. But overall, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to brush up my skills. It's been like a good time. hmm
Yeah. Well, we're excited to have you. A few announcements before we move on. Say hello on the chat. Remember, folks, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Instagram on Adobe Live, which of course some of you already have subscriptions. Let's say hello to the chat. Hi, Wade. We have Penny. We have Oliver. We have Arsha. Hi, Arsha. All right. So, Navy, let us know a little bit about your project and some more about you.
For sure. To be honest, it feels like this day and age, we've been getting more and more bogged down with a lot of layers of how multidimensional we are. We've used a lot of our skills, like even our parents are taking videos and photos. And I used to do graphic design for a while, and I got basically was doing a music video for a friend. And I will mention her name in a second, but was doing a music video for a friend, and then we were gonna outsource a cover for the album,
Mhm.
and the person that was gonna do it happened to get sick and were not available. So I was like, you know what? Let me brush up some of my skills and use some of this AI stuff. Give me the references. Let's put it together. Let's see how we could get it done. And we got it done, and she loved it. She's posting it right now. It's on her social media. The song is releasing, I think, in a couple days.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and I'm a videographer by trade. I have a history with graphic design and photography. I'm based in New York City.
That's wonderful. You know what? Some of the best opportunities happen when somebody drops off. I think that was one of my first introductions to wedding photography. A friend dropped
Mm,
off as well. So yeah, we're excited to see your workflow. That's always really enticing to see how some of these opportunities turn into real life projects. So what will we be working on? Will we be working on Photoshop today?
yes. So a
Okay.
little bit of mostly Photoshop, and then Firefly, just to show
Okay.
you a glimpse of how you could get started in either platform. And overall, basically, it's the barrier of entry. I feel like sometimes when we mention Photoshop, our users kind of get overwhelmed, and Firefly has a kind of a very ease to ease to access for most users. So I feel like let me throw in a couple prompts there, see what we get, and then go over to Photoshop.
Okay, sounds great.
And
And we have some more folks here on the chat. We have Gareth, we have Jean from Chile, Tennessee. I totally understand that. I just took off like 5 layers. So totally
You
get
said
that.
you said chili Tennessee.
T Chile, Tennessee, cold weather.
That's oh well, okay. I was just like I thought that was a I was like I've never heard of it, but all right.
Yeah, cool place to be. I've been to Tennessee before. Let us know where you're joining us from. That's always super interesting to know because folks join us from all over the world.
All right, so we're on Firefly right now, and
Hmm.
for some reason now I believe they just give you more of a call to action web page. So you just got to look for what you want to do, and we're gonna do is text to image at the moment. And again, it's giving you kind of inspiration to try to get you to get going. Once you enter a prompt, I just copy and paste this just because ease of access. We're gonna hit generate, and this is gonna be by default right now. It's not gonna be anything frantic because it just wants you to get started. Once this generates, we're gonna be able to customize it a little bit.
Okay.
All right, so right here, a little bit about Nati. Nati is from an island in Reunion, which is off the southeast of Africa. And she wanted to reference the cover about home. And she showed me a picture of her that her sister painted. And she's like, hey, I want to be in this yoga pose. And I want to be looking at my sister's painting in some kind of way. And I roughed that up. I'm going to show it to you in a little bit. But this is kind of how this prompt came to be. And once we got the ideal, I already went through different variations of this prompt and got it a little bit to where I want it.
Hmm.
We basically started experimenting with it. So this is something similar to what we wanted in this one too. And depending on what model you're using on Firefly, you could do two things. You could let me get out of here. If you click on this picture right here, it's going to say use a style reference.
Mm.
Basically, what it does, it decides, and you could pick if you want to, if you like this kind of style, and it will go forward. For some reason, Firefly 2, Model 2 doesn't have the image to image. But if you hit confirm to Firefly 1, you could come in here and use it as a reference image, not a style. So now it's actually going to take the whole image and give you a guidance of reference. So if I'm looking to generate an image that's similar to this and change the artistic style, then I would use something like this. So the prompt right here is obviously simplified. In different AI softwares, you get more of a percentage. So the center is more of a 50 right now. So whatever prompt you give it, plus the image is going to generate a new image for you. And if you say like, hey, I just want to go around 70 or maybe a little bit, you could generate that as many times as you want. So
Mm.
already picked that out. And
I
then
love using that feature. It's one of my favorite things that came into
to
Adobe
be
Firefly.
honest, yes, to be honest,
Hmm.
it's one of the most important features that I've used. And to be, you can use it to kind of recreate some of your old photos or old artworks, and it
Yeah.
really gets you going. Let me see if we go
It
art
definitely satisfies my need to introduce that like artist fingerprint in there somewhere.
for sure. And as a
Hmm.
photographer, maybe sometimes you want to see how your photo looks as an oil painting or something, and hire someone to do it. So right now we put art and it did not take it well because I don't know, sometimes AI gets a little tricky. But you could come in here and actually add additional styles. So here and it says clear style, it says art. You could come in here, hit advance. Sometimes you could oh, that's for the, so you could hit advance and just say photograph or photo. So it knows not to generate a photo. So then we could also kind of do another double up and hit painting and just generate a new one. Let's see what we get.
Yeah, we're generating that like sort of summer vibe. It feels like more so than the chat. Everyone seems to be in winter weather on the chat.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it snowed here and it rained right after.
Yeah.
And then that's the tricky is like, get a little bit of snow, but get some rain, and then now you
It's a
got
good
ice.
opportunity to get some like photo references maybe and introduce them in here if you want to generate some winter scenes.
That is 100% true. Let me see. Let's go pastels and let's see. We go more techniques and let's do oil painting. Let's try to do that now and see how you can just build up. And if it doesn't give me, because this is a style reference, if I just go back, if it doesn't mimic this again, I'm just gonna release the image reference and just generate from scratch and see what we get. Mm-mm-mm.
It's always a little bit of an interesting gamble to
Oh,
see what
oh,
we
it
get.
is.
You
It
just put
is.
the best, your best tokens forward, hope for the
It's
best.
photo
The
art.
prompt, the
All
image
right, let
references.
me release the reference, but it's usually it's trying to basically what it does is tries to give you similar images based on your reference. But let me
Yeah.
see what we get from something from scratch.
Sometimes I think I hit like a nice run
Interesting.
and I don't want to even turn off my computer because I think I'm like on a roll with generating different scenes. And
No.
whenever I
Yeah.
do bump into a block, I find that it's helpful to then refresh the entire thing because it might not be that good roll at all.
That's it has RNG. Oh my God, I didn't think about
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
yeah. And at this moment, for sure, like I spent probably an hour trying to recreate the one that I had prior, and it did not work for me. I was just like, what? But that's the role of RNG. Let me just
Yeah.
go full dress
And
and then
folks,
put.
if you have access to a computer or you're working beside us, which I often do on this live streams, I'm always doing like a little co-working session. Jump on Adobe Firefly, start experimenting with some of your photo references, maybe using the same prompt to see what your end of the world generates, right? Because it will
Mm-hmm.
be vastly different potentially, but hopefully those factors that Navy has chosen in here can play a role in influencing the imagery.
For sure. So we just retry that again, and all I did was add oil painting at the end and quotes
Wow,
and oil parentheses. Don't judge me.
that's
So
gorgeous. The texture on the water looks really beautiful.
I am scared to re-roll this right now. You know what?
Yeah,
I'm just
I
gonna
know what
open
you
up a new
mean.
tab.
You can
Just gonna open
also
up a new tab.
make them your favorites. So even if you don't want to download them, they're safe in your favorites.
Good.
But yeah, opening a new tab, another hack
Yeah.
for now.
Just gonna see.
Yeah, and I think things like this, investigating what kind of workflow you
Mm,
have, is also really curious because this is in such a development process that this could be a part of their improvement along the way. Don't know
right.
what the solution would be, but hopefully, just seeing these workflows help them navigate what needs there could be there.
For sure. And that's what I really like about the barrier of entry of Firefly is that when I'm using other AI softwares, it's like opening a completely different software and you just have to figure it out. Here, it
Yeah.
literally you could build on it and keep experimenting, which it's easy, it runs pretty quick. So as you notice, what we basically just tried was we tried the first prompt, the first roll around to try to use our painting and try to use the advanced features to exclude photography, and it still gave me photography. So what I did was I re-rolled it again and I added oil painting and I did not add any additional styling and it gave me
Mm,
what I wanted. So something like this is kind of what I built on. And I'm just going to give you an example of what that looks like now. So
mm. Okay.
this whole process just was when we often have to speak to clients and sometimes you have to speak to friends to try to figure out what they want or and this is where Firefly just literally breaks that barrier because you could go from all right, cool, is it something like this, and then just build on it. These are beautiful.
They are really beautiful. I love the third one, I think. The second and the third
Yeah, I
caught my eye
love the
the
third one too.
most.
And you could get
Yeah.
in here too and keep says use style reference. And if we switch over to model one, so let me explain this
Mm,
really quick. So
sure.
um AI generating softwares have a data sets.
Mm,
And Firefly's first data set is this one. And then on Adobe Max, this was released. This gives you better quality stuff, but it not everything is fully embedded yet. So that's we could see, we could try to generate this on Firefly 1 to see if we get something similar. Let me just
okay.
type in oil painting really quick.
That's interesting. So we don't have just one, we have two available
Correct.
because even though we have Model 2, Model 1 is still available for you to continue to experiment if you found
Correct.
some workflows that really worked for you
Mhm.
that they haven't been reintroduced into Model 2 yet.
Correct. What I like is since Model 2 doesn't have the image to image, I like using Firefly image one data set for image to image. And then for anything, generating anything from scratch, I use Firefly image two. Um,
Interesting.
so as you can see, the big difference here, the data set does not have as much data to create more realistic and oil painting based on what's out there. And this is what we get, right?
Cool.
Compared to something like this. So
Yeah,
the judge of characters, it's yeah,
you'll definitely see the distinct differences in sort of the fidelity of the results, even when they're illustrated. So it's kind of up to your preference as far as like what is the style that you're looking for.
hmm
Um, but I do find that to be for me, Model 2 is still my preferred version.
I do agree. It's like my eyes are just like, oh wow, we just
Yeah.
did that. So a
Yeah.
little bit of
Mostly for
context
photography.
of what we were working on.
Sure.
So Nati is a musician and she's based here in New York City. But her album was being released. We're shooting multiple music videos together. And she tells me, it's like, hey, I want this photo where I'm like sitting down and I'm like in the yoga pose and I'm just looking at a mirror at a studio. And the dance studios. So
Yeah.
um and we were supposed to kind of impose the photo into the mirror. And mind you, this is when we have to release a little bit
Yeah.
because I already knew that. I was just like, that's kind of hard. But I still kind of mocked it up and we went at it and tried to figure it out. And then eventually I was just like, hey, let me see what else we could do. So this is Nati.
Hmm.
And we imposed her into the photo. But what I wanted to show you is that this is a sister's painting. The original, I upscaled it because
Mm.
this is the original
I'm starting to
size.
see the cookie
Yeah.
crumbs of references.
And then she texts me one night. I'm working on like a rough, and she texts me one night. She's like, "Hey, my mother just texted me this photo, and this is the sunset from where I'm from." So what I did was I mocked this up, and if I go to PSDs, literally this is like the rough one, like literally it says rough.
Yeah.
Uh, so let me get in here really quick. So I came in here. Wow. Wow. All right. And we were kind of building the studio layout using AI, generated fill. And if you could see this, we have the prompts here. And we try to bring her in and to try to get her to kind of mock it up.
Hmm.
And then I told her, it was just like, it's not giving me the home. It's not giving me the feeling of home and everything. This is like
Right.
very early on. And then I was like, I don't know how I am gonna impose your sister's
It's
photo.
a
I kind of
very,
mocked up a mirror and I
right.
like brought it over. I don't know why. Come
It's
here.
like the job is, I mean, the thing is
Yeah,
being done, but is it giving
yeah,
you that essence that you're hoping for?
correct. And I mocked up this mirror and I put the layer in there and I tried to make it work. And it didn't come out the way I wanted to. Then I literally put a tropical island and then try to like mock it up and I overlaid this over it to try to give it like a little gradient. Um, and then we decided that we were going to move forward and based on another image that I have, which is this is what I generated on Firefly.
Okay.
Why is it not loading?
Yeah,
Um,
Arsha and Carol says it looks really nice so far. I mean, yeah, definitely is one of those things where there's a lot of different process from going from imagination to some degree of imagery and then adjusting what kind of ingredients you bring in to make it look and feel the way you really want to, especially when it comes to a medium like music. It's like feeling is
oh, for
always
sure.
there, ever present.
For sure. And then so this is what we did. This is a so I went on Firefly and I generated this. And I used her sister's painting to as a reference to get the colors in the water. Um
Mm,
so let me
that's
bring that
so
up.
cool.
Da,
It's a
da, da.
family art making process.
And it looks like something like this. Maybe I should organize this a little better.
Arsha says, yeah,
Assets.
creative. Yeah, definitely. There's so many different ways to adjusting a workflow today, especially in Photoshop, right? We're accustomed to bringing some of our ingredients from Adobe Stock or um, maybe on a walk where you gather some photos. When it comes to a client process, Navy, do you often find that you have to gather assets from them to get started?
To be honest, when it comes to clients, it's even for video too. they they will send you things and then you have to they'll
Yeah.
send you a logo. It's not rendered. It's flat, so you have to extract it. Uh you have to overlay it on a black background, so now you got to make it white.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to extract images from videos
Right.
for them. So building your own data assets for your clients, it happens all the time. And
Gotcha.
it's good to ask. So based on that reference, uh this is kind of like the rough where we started. Um, and then the sister's painting is on the top, and her mother's photo is on the bottom. So we brought that into Firefly as a reference, and I put the same prompt that I showed you guys earlier, and gazillion revisions later, I got this image. And then I came on here and I was like, all right, I got something to work with.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was like, I need to Photoshop her out. So I basically came in here and what did I do? I did generated fill and I removed her. Then I layered her back in. And then I use generated fill right here. It says meditating in the water, wearing a deer dress, and these are the different options. And then I
Cool.
actually had her pick. I was just like, which one you like?
Yeah,
And then she's like,
absolutely.
oh, kind of, like she
Yeah,
kind of picked
make
one of these first. And then she like, I was like, I like that one better. And I liked it because it also kind of matches
there's
the
a
color.
there's always a nice spot where you can invite the client to
Hmm.
kind of make a decision in something where they don't won't get lost and like, wait, why is this like this? This isn't quite what I wanted. It's like, oh, well, this is just getting started. There's always a sweet
100%.
spot, right?
Hmm. No, and
It's
it
the
goes back and
rough.
forth. And sometimes I feel like I like educating a lot also when I'm speaking to clients. And sometimes obviously it makes them feel like they were a part of the process too, because they were. And it helps uh, be collaborative. The way we work, me and Nati, we work together is very collaborative.
Oh, it's always
And
great. Yeah.
I know when to step back and she knows when to push forward in certain areas. And I was just like, this is great.
Mm.
And because I'm as designers, as creatives, we all know we are kind of like semi-perfectionists. So I'm like trying to like get every detail done, and she's like, "It's okay, it looks fine," and I'm like,
Yeah,
"All
we
right."
kind of understand that
Yeah.
process. It's very
So
so Barbara here. I'm just gonna say, call out the chat real quick.
mhm,
Barbara, Arsha, they're all saying it looks great. And Wade said mixing all of these ideas and images is always a tough task. So they totally understand the kind of like the challenge in the process.
for sure. So now I'm gonna open up the big file, and that one's not called rough. All right.
That's
All right.
super cool.
So this is the final,
Wow. Hold
and I
on.
am gonna break down everything in here.
Okay.
So let's erase,
And this is going to be a
erase.
cover that goes on digitally. Are we having like a cover that
Oh,
slips into a CD
it's gonna
disc?
be digital.
Old school, you know?
It's gonna, I wish, right?
It could. It
Uh,
totally could. I think, I used to love opening those and then it opens up into lyrics or a
yeah.
giant poster.
This is Nati's Instagram at the moment,
Oh,
and
beautiful.
she's slowly posting it. It's gonna be released on the 19th, and by that
Cool.
day, she's gonna have everything. She's actually in reunion right now. She's shooting a second part for the music video we just
Yeah.
wrapped here, which is
That's so
beautiful to see
peculiar
it in
that now we're
action.
like our mediums of sharing sort of this visual is going to be like something like this, like being
Mm-hmm.
able to repurpose it for the cover, but also as a way to launch it and kind of tease on
100%.
online.
So we already checked on the previous PSD that I opened. This is where we
Hmm.
were at. Um, so I came in here and I basically, this is where the secret sauce goes in. You can't always rely on AI to generate a full human for you because it doesn't know how to. So you have to, it doesn't have the data set completely, and you have a little bit more control if you decide to basically create different parts, right? And the best way I say that is, let me just go here. Um, I will grab her head and then crop it in and then use generated fill to change it. And
Mm.
then I will grab her tattoo, which is in the back. Generated fill doesn't know how to do that on a full image. But if you literally take just the letters and do generative fill, it tries its best to implicate it. So that's not
Mm.
her actual
Okay.
tattoo, but it's similar. And when you're looking at the art piece and as a whole, it gets there. And at the same time, she had a little tattoo in her ear, and we're not going to get that. So we did the same thing. Where is the ear tattoo?
Oh,
I
that's
found
tattoos, especially if it
yeah.
has type.
Oh,
That's
yes.
very challenging still in our generating process. Um, there's some really interesting hierarchy of like
Mm,
of goals that we have is like
yeah.
make sure hands are good, make sure type looks good. And those are like
100%.
some intriguing challenges of our
Yes.
new AI world that we live in.
Hmm.
Who'd have thought, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm incredible at cursive, but AI ain't so good.
No, no, with text AI is not there yet. So
Right.
I basically kind of used the reference of what we had here. This is a regular AI generated person. And then
Okay.
I imposed her on it, right? And
I see.
that goes in line with bringing in uh different parts of her and
Okay.
generated filling them and then bringing it and blending it all together.
Oh,
So for
that's
example, her
interesting.
arm, this arm right here, at first was not, it did not even look like an arm. It looked like
Mm.
a stick. So I had to grab her arm and do generated fill on it, just this little part, and then clone this arm, bring it up to the right side, and then create a shadow for it too, which is
That's
right
really
here.
peculiar to look at
Um,
those details and then find a way to sort of mesh both of them together,
Correct. And you
blend
have
them
to notice
together.
that this is from the other reference photo that I have. Um, this is, I literally started like nitpicking the dress near the end,
Hmm.
and I changed it. So,
The dress is
well,
so cool.
just not like extreme, but a little nitpick. So tattoos, as we already saw, and then her head, right?
Mm.
And this is just a frame on top. Okay. So this is what we build
It's a
out
lot
for
of
her.
retouching.
Yes.
But it's a new
Yeah.
dynamic of retouching, which is so interesting because I
Hmm.
think a lot of folks think, okay, I'm generating something, it's going to be 100% generated. But you're
Yes.
bringing in image references and trying to kind of still honor those elements like the tattoo, like how can I make sure this is
Hmm.
most of all the artist and then still introducing those AI elements.
No,
That's a cool
and
challenge.
it to be honest, when I was in Adobe Max, one of the most things I got excited about was the AI feature for Illustrator, because I have
Mm.
not used Illustrator in such a long
Yeah, that was
time.
shocking. Yeah.
And then I was just like, what, you mean I could go in there and make some rough cuts for my logo? All right,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's just kind of like, I don't want to do it like as a day-to-day job, but
Mm.
when things like this happen, when like something comes up and I just need to take on a challenge, I want something to help me,
And
And
fast.
yes, and now instead of spending I did this in a week, I think. Instead of spending like weeks or hiring several teams to try to get something done, I was able to recoup at a pressure situation and build something out of it, and got back into
Yeah,
Photoshop because I haven't used
absolutely.
Photoshop in a bit for designing.
Right.
Excuse me.
I think
But
what's been
yeah.
challenged in this entire new introduction of this medium of AI is truly these older workflows that we've had where we've had to cope with time-intensive material that kind of takes away from the part where like you can really start to romanticize and create like this visual poetry and collaborate with your client because you're spending too much time creating an element or another,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting now to kind of see workflows like yours or anyone else, that I've hosted here that does AI. I'm always like, whoa, this feels so new,
Hmm.
because you don't see those workflows abundantly online just yet.
Yeah, and then when we were talking about presenting this, I just didn't even process it, but I told you, I was just like, oh,
Yeah,
this is compositing. This is I used to
yeah,
composite since I was little, and then this is just
right.
this is
It's
me
like
doodling. Yeah.
the first thing that
Hmm.
I found myself doing in Photoshop actually is
Yeah, we all
compositing.
started. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I didn't take photos, I was compositing photos as like,
Yeah.
when I was little. Uh
Yeah.
so little I've been using Photoshop for about 20 years.
Wow.
The and a lot of the things have changed, which is fine, but
Yeah.
we had a
20
neighbor,
years is a lot of change.
and he was an illustrator. He's we're techie because he's techie. He used to build computers. He was an illustrator, and then every time he'll build a computer, my brother was a year older than me. He's in Connecticut right now, but he would bring all the extra parts, and we will build our own computer, and then we would
Oh,
just
that's
and
awesome.
then like we will grab his software and we'll start experimenting. So I used to use graphics.
Yeah.
We used to play video games back then. I used to use graphics to kind of edit these video game characters and stuff like that.
I love
So
that. That's awesome because we have a stream up next that is from a video developer. So
wow.
showing us their artistry. So it's kind of interesting that you just mentioned that.
I'm gonna stay tuned to that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when I mentioned a little earlier that I changed her dress, it's like I felt like her dress was just like kind of floating in the water. So I
Gotcha.
used generative fill to come in here and create a different a look for the dress. And
Alternatives.
see, these are
Hmm.
different alternatives right here. And this is the
Yeah.
pleasure of not flattening the generated fill, because you can always go back and decide what you're gonna stick with.
Right. And you
Um,
always get three generations, which is
mhm,
more than you really kind of I don't know, bargain for, right? Like I'm
mhm.
always like, two I would have been happy with. Three, I get three options each generation. That's great.
So let me see. So, and then you can always go back and regenerate. So let me do a
Mhm.
snapshot really quick. And then let me just say long dress emerged in colorful
And we have some
water.
new folks joining us. We have Christian, we have Donier, we have Steve. And for those folks just joining us, we are here with Navy exploring composition in Photoshop. So Wednesdays we're doing Photoshop series, which is super cool. It's a new way to approach our Adobe ecosystem. So I'm glad that you're here. And if you're a fan of Photoshop, let us know what is your current favorite tools because so much has changed. Navy has been doing this for 20 years in Photoshop. So much has changed.
Oh, trust me, I came in here. I haven't even there's this new tool right here
Yeah.
called like the remove tool. And I was like,
Oh,
I have never used that.
yes.
And I was just like, okay. And then
And
I'm
it's
like
AI
still doing it from
powered.
scratch. Yeah, so it's
Actually,
pretty
there's
dope.
so many tools in Photoshop that are secretly AI powered, and you have no idea. You're like, why
That's
is this
awesome.
working better than the other? Probably that.
So I tried to do a new generation. As you saw, I basically
Uh-huh.
added like a little prompt. We could get even more detail with the prompts, but
Okay.
it gave me basically like a new role. And my three original ones are still here, down here. But as you can see, now there's these other ones. So if I wanted to come back and someone gives me feedback on this cover and says like, you know what, I don't know about the dress, I could regenerate
The
this
prompt.
dress and then
Right.
change it. And if it's to be honest, if it's flattened, okay, you could still, select it and then regenerate it yourself, but it does make it
Yeah.
easier that this is a separated layer
Definitely try
that
to
helps you
work
out.
non-destructively because
Hmm.
there's a lot of perks. I think what you mentioned there, having those options and the workflow of like discussing it with your client is really, really important. Also, you have your prompt embedded in there. So if you ever like
Yep.
what was the wordage structure that I put together to create this? It's
Hmm.
still always in there, so long as you don't flatten it, right? So you always have access to that and maybe build upon that as a
Right.
foundation for the
And
future. Yeah.
then I when I reshaped this, it basically gave me this let me go. It gave me this kind of like bulge right here, which is felt weird and didn't look natural. So then I selected regenerative fill
Mm,
and I just fixed it. And I was just like, well, thanks. I
yeah.
appreciate that.
Little details.
Yeah. And it came forward. Let me see where we're here. All right, so this is that. And this is basically the bottom of the photo. I moved it around several times and try to get it built as much as I can. But what I haven't showed you is that as you can see, it's like a texture pattern. It looks like a little bit like painting, a little bit oil. In here, there's little there's a folder where I basically came in with generative AI and selected different areas, and just let it do its thing, because
Mm,
some things didn't match up. So I came in here and see how this kind of stuck out because it didn't wasn't the same quality. So you can use generative AI to kind of blend your image. That's something we would always spend time on when we're compositing, trying to blend things together. And the pleasure is that you can overlay things right now and use generative fill to kind of help you blend your image. That's what these little processes here help me do. And as you can tell, if I go in here, I kind of went in and did that. And it doesn't have to be realistic. It's just a painting is abstract, but I went in there and picked up on some of that. And some of it's not perfect. Like when I was looking, I found an area where I was like, oh wow, I kind of missed that. And you see how I basically took this, which did not look low res, because this is all little chopped up images that I put together. Um, and then this was in the previous image, this was sticking out. If I show you my stages, ba, ba, ba. This one, it kind of gave you like the reflection of the horizon, and I was like, it didn't fit because she was in the middle. And sometimes AI is not accurate, so you got to go in there and fix it. So I went in there and removed it, just selected it with generative fill, and it got rid of it. Look, did a clean job, and we could pretty sure we could try it again. Um, Let me just not select the
yeah, I
dress.
think that a very understated part of generating is and not talked about enough. I don't know why, but it's that fact that like it's so considered of the external environments and kind of knows, okay, I have to blend this to a thing that ha seems to have
Correct.
ripples and
Correct.
texture. And something like that would have to be like, a composite that you bring in that texture and you have to kind of reinvent this. Like, should I bring
Hmm.
in drapes and kind of make it look like this is part of her dress? And there's just so many steps there that if those of you who may have been using compositing in the past may kind of just see an easier way to apply that. And those of you who haven't, then welcome. You're kind of at the easy step already.
Yeah,
It's kind of
and
amazing.
yeah, like if I zoom in, you see like these little infractions, and this happens because obviously, when you generate photos through AI, it's not the best, it's not the highest quality. Um, and I did the mistake because I was trying to build this up and I didn't upscale it. So this was little imperfections
Oh,
on top of it. So I would use generative fill to kind of like it kind of use the surroundings like you just mentioned, Sin, and it gives me something similar. And I was like, oh, well, that works. And I just kept going, and sometimes it didn't work. And then I like there's some layers here, which it, I enabled this one and that one didn't work. So I was like, eh. But I kept them here just to show you guys. And I one on
do
the
you have any
bottom.
difficulties with the scaling of these? I know they're not vectors, so we're not talking about Illustrator
Yeah.
generations.
No,
We
trust me.
still kind of treat them like pixels, right? So, um,
100%.
pixels are more like fabric. Like,
Yeah,
your bunny
no,
sweater during Christmas. Like, you
it
pull it, you
is.
see everything in between.
It is. And you can tell
Yeah.
this is not high res. And if I wanted to go back in there and I would separate the background, upscale
Yeah.
it, and then bring her back in. And that's the pleasure of
Ah, okay.
having uh all these layers to build on.
Right.
But to be honest, the way this worked, I sent it to her and she's like, I love it. And then I
Mm.
expected for me to go back and like touch it. And she's just like, nah, I'm good. And
She
I'm like,
sounds
all
like a
right.
great client.
And I was like, all right, let's take it. So yeah, these are the bottom things that we were talking about. And then the
Yeah.
top frame kind of gives us another layer of this context because I showed her all this, and then she was
Hmm.
so nice about it. I gave her I showed her this. Remember I told you like uh this is before I kind of like
Added the
generated fill,
reflection.
and I
Yeah.
this is a real photo still. This is like stage 6, as you can see there. But this is still
You can
her
see that it doesn't
before.
go together as
Correct.
well. Yeah.
And then at this when I send her this, it's like, hey, this is kind of rough what I'm doing with the
Oh my
water.
God. Put them
And
side by
then
side. That's a huge difference. I mean, you've
yeah.
accomplished the task on the first one, but
Mhm.
you've taken it further by kind of doing that blend. I don't know. I think it's very specific, that workflow of blending both AI with your photography. So it's not a 100% AI credit. It's like a little bit, something, it's an ingredient blending and it looks superb on the left-hand side. It just looks completely different.
Mhm.
You can just tell they go together on the left-hand side.
And like I said, the little details, like I'm telling you right now, if uh
Yeah.
what's going on? Whatever. So if the issues were if you try to generate a fill a whole person, you're gonna get anything. And sometimes you can't really control that.
Anything.
So
Yeah.
you kind of have to, like what I did, dice it up. Like you were compositing. You're gonna select the head, you're gonna select the arm, you're gonna select the torso, and then kind of blend them back in. And that allows you to get something to where you started, from the concept. So as you can tell, you see the tattoos on here, they're not accurate. And then I have another thing here that I'll show you, but you see they're not accurate, but it resembles what it looks like, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and then when I showed her this, her instant reaction was, yeah, but I can't really see my sister's photo. And I was just like, I'm getting to that. And then I sent her this like 20 minutes
That is a
later.
true sibling, like
Yeah.
defending.
And I was like, but it's in the water. And she's like, but she understood. But
Yeah.
like the colors of the water is the painting. So
So is this an alternative? This is pretty cool.
this is all stages. This is step 7 right now. So if
Okay,
I go up, I show you
gotcha.
this is where we started. This is
Wow.
the concept of her sister's work. And then I impose it in the water as we use this as a reference for Firefly to get this.
Okay.
Then we Photoshop the center out, put her in. Then we added a dress. Did not really like it. We changed it to this and I moved it up. And then she's like, feedback. And I was like, can't really see the photo. I was like, all right. And mind you, I used generated fill to fill the top here and the bottom, to kind of get that
Okay.
going. And then I sent her
Right, because
this.
yeah, you can also use it to fill empty pixels,
Correct.
essentially. Uh-huh.
Correct. So then I sent her this and I was like, what do you think of the idea of just like the frame coming out of the water and just being there. And then she's like, oh,
There's
kind of
something
like
very
understanding.
visceral about windows and
Hmm.
doors. It's like, what is on the other side?
Correct.
It's like the
And
Truman scene.
and
So,
it felt more welcoming to me. It's like digestible to kind of just like be like, oh,
right,
that makes sense. Like a portal coming out of the water. You're kind of
right,
reminding of
right.
home. Your sister is
So
the
you
portal.
generated that within Photoshop with generative fill?
Correct.
Oh, cool.
I
Gotcha.
basically selected this area and I put a door in the middle of the water and it generated this for me. And then prior to that, I generated
Okay.
the sunset. The reason why I changed from this guy was because the colors are beautiful. But when you have to remember, I used the colors from the painting to
Hmm.
generate the whole image. So I tried to overlay it here and it got too distracting. You basically lose the painting. So I was like, okay, now
Mm.
we need a contrast now. We gotta take a whole different color that's not in this pastel kind of look just to separate the painting from the background. And then I was like, let me just put sunset and I selected the whole top and then put sunset coming out of the water. I mean, painting in a frame coming out of door coming out of the water and then this came through
I have a
and
question.
then
So when
talk
you
to
made
me.
the selection at
Hmm.
that on the upper side, did you make that full selections? That way it generated a
Yes.
sunrise landscape?
Hmm.
Okay. So, because I was imagining you were making that square selection in the center. Um,
Yes, so let me
but that
see if
was
I
all the
still
imagination
have that.
of generative AI. We can also generate a few just to kind of
Yes.
see, because one thing that I learned pretty late was the selection really influences the
Hmm.
way it's going to generate something. So for example, if you make a squiggly shape, and try to generate a flower. That flower is going to be shaped in that squiggly shape for the most part. We'll find
Yes,
options
yes.
around that selection. So that selection is important. And so in your kind of struggle there of like keeping that background, it could be um, one that like yeah, you did that selection first, right? So then you
Hmm.
generate it. It will
And
generate and fill
then,
all those pixels.
yes,
Um,
we just put
Oftentimes, if you
sunset
want to
for
make a
now.
sun, then you want to make a
Uh,
circle selection that kind of
yes.
applies to the
Golden
whole thing. So keep
sun.
that in mind. Your selection really does influence your generation. And sometimes you
And
read it in those tips. It says that in there. I think that's how I caught it the first time.
another, I've had the better luck overlaying just a little bit.
Yeah.
I just canceled that one because I was a little bit off. But if you overlay just a little bit, it kind
Oh, I
of
see.
generates a better blend. So let me try that again.
So grab a few
Sunset.
pixels of that
Yes,
element, right? Because currently
golden.
you were selecting
Yes,
only empty pixels.
golden.
When I first started using AI, I thought this is how you did it. I think I told you that. I was like, okay, empty canvas, start generating.
Yes.
But in fact, influencing the canvas with the things around it, and so influencing the generation with the things around the canvas is
Hmm.
a different game in itself. Wow.
Correct. So you
You
see how
could just
to,
never know what you're gonna
yeah,
get.
you literally do not. So here's just by selecting a little bit from the
It's
bottom,
beautiful.
it gave me this like kind of weird, uh, it's, I don't know what it is to be honest. Looks like probably like an old dock or something, like
Yeah.
wood coming out of the water. But guess what? We have other options. So this looks nice.
It's like a
And mind
marsh,
you,
it looks
I
like.
have I have one of these being overlaid at the moment.
That one's really
Where
pretty too.
where is that frame? Ta-tan.
And just get so many different perspectives of
There we go.
landscapes. And I think what's interesting is that if you have a photography background, like you do,
Hmm.
Navy, it could be really intriguing to kind of see the different compositions that it renders.
Oh yeah.
Also, even if you don't ask for them, it just gives you
And you
some alternative
it
compositions.
does. And sometimes it gives you things
Mhm.
you don't imagine. I was like, oh, okay. Because
Right.
to give you an example, the what I did for the frame.
Barbara says that sky is amazing.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're gonna
Barbara
keep it.
approved.
We're gonna keep it. Let's go. Actually, let's stick to that. So we did with the frame, obviously. Let me go actually get the real photo.
Yeah.
Dun,
And by
dun.
the way, folks, if you would like to nominate yourself or someone you know to be a guest on Adobe Live, you can submit that recommendation on the creative tab that's on the chat on Behance. So if you know talented folks like my fellow friend here, Navy, definitely submit their name on there.
For sure. I would love to come back and see anyone. It's like to
Yeah,
me, this
it's a
is like,
routine for
yeah.
me.
Like for you, you know all the people though. I gotta get back in here and no, I Adobe Max was great. And then prior to this, they asked me to watch a couple of lives and I watch. I feel like everyone has been listening to podcasts now.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I spent the
so
whole
many.
week just listening to lives like they were podcasts. And
Yes,
then I was like, oh, well, that
exactly.
sounds interesting. Let me let me check that out. Um,
Yeah.
so
It's a great
just
way to do
because
it. Yeah, because we're chatting along
hmm
and a lot of this material you know about. So if you're curious enough, I often have it in two screens. But if you do want to listen to a podcast, I don't know if you have yet, Navy. We have
yeah,
our own podcast. It's called
yeah,
In the Making, and it's hosted by Adobe's very own Teresa Au. And she's really cool. I think you met her at Max. But
I
yeah, some
probably
of the
did, yeah.
greatest insights in those podcasts.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So one thing that I would tell you is that if you hide layers, it would not be in the generative fill. So I'm just gonna be like create frame, frame.
Oh yeah, you didn't. Okay, so you just hid them so that it won't influence
Correct.
the
I don't want
generation.
to infer. Yeah.
We didn't
So
delete them.
I
Okay.
believe the prompt that I use. I'm just gonna type in frame for now. Our frame,
Yeah.
but I kind of used a different prompt. So let me.
I think for me also something I noticed, gosh, don't quote me on this, but I think in the past few times that I was generating, if I was above the layer, then it
Oh
would take
oh wow! I
influence of
forgot.
it. But if I'm below the layer,
Oh yeah,
It
because it's
won't.
I
Has
believe
that happened to you?
yes, it does.
Yeah,
So
okay.
this was a quick little hiccup,
Okay.
as you can tell, since the
Hmm.
layer is so big. It decided to since the selection is so huge, it decided to just do that. So let me go back
It's like
in
you're
and
having a
just
conversation with AI. It's like, what
yeah.
is this? And it discerns
So I
it's
am
like
gonna
a Dali painting, it looks like.
yes, I'm gonna go ahead and
It's
just
not a
select all
bad,
my stuff
it's very intellectual, this AI. It's like,
for
let me
sure.
show you some really cool painting. And folks, if you have questions on the chat, or remember, Navy is all around talented. So any questions you may have for Navy about career choices, career design, anything is super helpful. We're live here. This is one of the coolest parts about joining a live stream. And also, if you have questions about Photoshop, any of the tools that we're currently using, drop them in, and I'll read them to Navy.
Yeah. Was I supposed to monitor chat? I was like, I feel like I was like, should I have a window open?
No,
But
I have it.
okay, cool,
I
cool.
got you.
All right, appreciate you. So you could get like how Sin was mentioning earlier, you could get very precise with your selection. So what I did is obviously I made little marquee rectangles and I kept adding to them by hitting shift. So if
Mm,
you make a selection here and you hit shift, you hold shift down and make another selection, it
okay.
does an additional. And you could join them if you want it. And then you could deselect them by hitting option
Or
um,
alt. Yeah.
or alt. I forgot. We got window users, sorry. Um,
Sorry,
so
not sorry.
yeah. So we just created a little frame. And this is kind of fair. I should have made a bigger selection on the top and the bottom to give you an example. This is we're just generating because
So you
I
created a
wanted
frame for her sister's painting.
correct.
Mm,
So what I
very expensive frame.
yeah, just seriously, and it's very realistic. So we have to make sure we
And it
kind of
just cost us nothing. Well,
yeah.
credits.
So I put vintage art frame. That's what I did. Okay. Ah, all right. It's cool.
Vintage art
So
frame. Oh, that makes sense.
so
That's why it's ornamental.
yeah. So here's the
Very
paintings.
Victorian.
So where did we start?
Oh, okay.
So
So
this
you're
is where we started. See?
generated several.
Mm-hmm. And look at how rough that looks. And I was like, oh, and then I kind of generated different ones and I used them and I kept moving them around. And then I created a frame and then I didn't like one frame after, so then I just imposed the image on
Yeah.
top of it. Um, and
That
then I
alone is really cool, even for
yeah.
just her sister's painting to have a different way of presenting,
Mm-hmm.
right? Digitally.
So I'm gonna see if we could put gold frame. So let's put
Yeah, for those
gold
folks that are on the chat that maybe dabble in
vintage
illustration, there's always a
gold
place for
frame.
presenting your work. And I think it's kind of cool to find ways to introduce AI there so you can present it better.
And then let's see if we could recoup the top. So let's just make an additional selection here and see if we could recoup it. And trust me, I didn't know they had so many different frames. I went through so many frames. I'm like, I love the gold one though. So I erased the prompt. Okay, so gold, vintage frame, um, vintage art frame, oil painting. Let's see what we got. I'm rolling with. I think I'm gonna roll with the first one. All right, cool. So now let's bring back everything, and because now we have a new sunset. Cool. All right, so let's see. Where are we? Are we moving this? Oh, separate it. Okay, right, because it's two different frames. Because I added it. All right.
Maybe
Muévete.
maybe talk let us know what's on your mind. Let us know what's on your mind. I know it's
Oh,
like one of
so
those things that
yeah.
multitasking.
Hold on. Since I literally, oh, okay, they're separated. That's why. Cool, which is good. So I'm
Yeah.
just gonna link these really quick. All right. So
What
where we
does linking
basically
do?
linking, what it does is which you can tell I was trying to move the layers. And when you have so many layers on here,
Hmm.
either if you don't rename them properly, either lose them, hide them, delete them by mistake, or when you're trying to drag something out, it doesn't move properly, so you have to hit Shift and select. So if I go and unlink
Mm.
these right now, I if I select only one, it moves around, right? And if I know these two belong together, but I don't want to merge them because you don't want to work in a destructive process, I go and link them, and then now I know these two belong together. And if I see them in a pair, then I know like this is what this is. Um, so we have a
That's
frame
handy.
now, and we have a new sunset, and a couple little things that you noticed on here is, which I'm just going to show you. All right. So I'm going to hide her again. Where is she? Okay, there we go. So when I try to hide things because I don't want to, I'm going to paint under it. So the, the frame right now obviously doesn't look uh, as artistic as we wanted to, but we're going to try to blend that in a little bit later. But in the process, I wanted to show you guys other things you could do with generative AI. And that means that, as you can tell in my final frame, there is some mist in the bottom. So all I did was I created a new layer, and then I took white and probably higher than that, opacity probably like 40. Yeah, and then I painted it under it. And then what you do is you select that whole region with uh, your marquee tool. And since we have the layer selected, generative fill, and you just type in miss under the frame and
What was
generate
that
it.
mist?
Yes, a fog.
Mm.
I could say fog. Probably fog would be
Mm.
better.
Yeah, yeah. I often use that. It's so dramatic. Or
Cool.
clouds, fog,
Let's
rain.
put clouds. So you could so once you develop and layer everything out, and then you could get in there and start picking little things and add little things. And that's what's happening with me.
Mm.
I saw the frame. I was like, it's not really blending. Let me see what
Right.
we could
Yeah.
do. Um, and I probably should bring the opacity
You think
higher.
about like natural elements that would be in the
Hmm.
scene.
And at first, I mean, because of the rocks are under it, I painted some rocks. I put like coastal rocks. Uh, and probably
Yeah, it's in the
go,
details, right?
yeah. So I that's probably I did this one solid. So going in here and painted little rocks, like little coastal rocks. And you could kind of get more realistic if you wanted with these, if anything. And I took the rocks off for the final, uh, but try to rename the layers as much as you can. Coastal rocks. Just put rocks. All right. So we're gonna see what generative fill does for this. And then we just put coastal
That's
rocks.
interesting. I've never seen that. So you
Let's see
make
what it gives.
the sketches just as a
A reference, yeah.
foundation, as a
Hmm.
reference. Okay.
And it's supposed to kind of take everything a little bit for what it is. There's other ways to get like a 50-50 look on this, and
Mm,
I will show you what that looks like. Coastal rocks. You can get detailed
yeah.
coming out of the water, um, oil
It's kind of
painting.
like a way to create that selection
Yeah.
also, but giving some reference because it's going to study whatever pixels are within that selection, right?
100%.
It's a good way to think of that.
There's another method that I add reflection sometimes. So see, this is kind of what I had last time, which is like the little rocks here. And then
Mm.
obviously it took over
It took
the frame,
yeah.
but you know, you could go in there, you already have a mask, you could come in like paint it out if you wanted to and just make it work.
So mask it
Yeah,
back in.
correct. Let me see what we layered. Come back. All right, cool. Sometimes face mask. Oh, because I'm not on I was on
You're
gray
not on
still.
full black and white.
No. Are you gonna fight me now?
I think it
Select.
has to be the second one.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
there
I
you
created
go.
a new mask on top of it.
Yeah. Oh, it already defaults with a mask, so every time it
Yep,
generates.
I forget.
Um,
So, all right, let's bring this back. Let's go back here.
so you
All
can
right.
put it
Yeah.
to bring back the painting. Yeah, because I think in all of these steps, the goal is always to, at least for Photoshop and the Photoshop team, is always to make sure not to have a destructive process.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why they helped you out there with like, we'll just include the mask here because we're pretty sure you're gonna want to blend this somehow. Um,
Correct. And you could literally do generative fill again and try to get it to a way that you like, which is nice. And you get in here, like I said, it's supposed to kind of resemble a painting. So I try not to look for the perfections. Um, but I get in here and try to make sure there's no like hard edges. So always I try to use a soft brush as much as I can. And to help you do this, you could do it way better than just lower the opacity and see where you're at. Um, but we should be fine. Cool. And then since now we have that built on, kind of a little closer. So I'm gonna try to create a reflection after this.
you know what's really cool? I love
Talk to
that
me.
you're able to, I don't know, it just the painting was direct. I mean, the painting was a direct influence to the generated water, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just we can really tell, especially now that you're zooming in, I can really tell the way it referenced all the entire color palette and the brush strokes even. So it
Mm-hmm.
just goes so well together. That
No,
was a smart step.
and there's I'm gonna try to show a process for that in a second in here and see how well it takes it. So those are the rocks. And then remember, every layer that's on is gonna reference it. That's why I hit her. Hit the subject because I'm gonna try to create a reflection. And if she's in the subject, um, it's gonna reference her also. So we're just gonna go and select this and then just type in reflection and see how well it does.
Reflections. Actually, my first demo, the first demo I ever saw somebody, a professional do, of AI was reflections on a
No
corgi.
way, really?
On a
Okay.
corgi dumping on a puddle. It was awesome.
That's
It was
amazing.
like a
So,
real wow moment, because it's really good at it.
so what you're seeing now is it's not really reflecting the image,
Mhm.
which is fine for this case. We could literally impose it if we wanted to,
It's
which I'm gonna
cool
try in a
though.
second. But I
That
like
second
the
one.
second one, right?
Yeah, the second
So
one. Yeah.
on here, obviously it's not blending well right now. You could just
Hmm.
adjust the opacity.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Or the modes, maybe.
We could overlay it if we want, but it kind of gets a little tricky.
Well, yeah, that's for black, and I think
Hmm.
the second one is for white, and then the last ones are for color.
Yeah. So if we do
Sometimes
screen,
it works, sometimes it gives you a interesting result. You're
yeah,
like, huh.
the lighting works a lot better sometimes for me. I like
Okay.
doing the opacity just in case I want to go back in and adjust it. So let me see if I go in right here and compare that. That's 50. Kind of do like that line, the darker right here better. And then bring down the opacity just a bit. Cool. Um, One thing we noticed is that we lost the rocks.
Mm.
We lost the rocks because we're using darken. Okay. Let me go on
Oh,
no.
because you changed the color mode. Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, wait, what did we?
We could paint
We're
the
in the
we could paint the rocks back
generation.
in. Yeah,
Yeah, using the mask like you did
yeah.
earlier.
Da, da, da.
And I'm curious, Navy, like, did you find yourself embracing um, these AI features pretty quickly in your workflow, or having clients ask for them pretty quickly, or how was that for you?
That's a good question. I was very for it when I was hearing about it, but what to give you an example, I basically was just like, it could go either really bad or really good, and now I'm just gonna wait it out and see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, so clients at the moment have not been asking for it.
Hmm.
But I know a lot of photographers in the field that are taking wrinkles out of shirts, taking extending the background of wallpapers.
Hmm.
Uh, there's
Yeah.
there's a talent that has like a sweater with a logo they don't like, and you could just easily
Right.
select it and replace that.
Saving
Um,
so much
a
time.
lot of nitpicking when it comes to
Yeah.
clients and deliverables, especially for photos.
Oh my gosh.
Um, it has had an effect for sure. So it hasn't become a thing where we feel like, okay, clients know we could do this yet,
Okay.
but it's been saving us a lot of work when it comes to it. I've even
Yeah.
what was it? Let's see if I don't have it on me, but I had a friend, she shot a wedding, and she goes and she all film. She shoots all film. So she sends me a photo preview and she's like, oh my God, like I took this photo of the groom and there's a garbage can behind him.
Oh,
And it was right here. Like the garbage
yeah.
can is like right here. And then I was like, just send it to me. And then I was like, she's like, are you sure? And I was like, yep. And I brought it to Adobe Photoshop and beta, like before, like early on.
Yeah.
And then I made a selection. I made a selection. I selected him individually, brought him into a new layer, like we did in general, like when we removed her from here.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Right.
always important so you
Similar.
could kind of customize it. So I brought him into a new layer. All I have now is his silhouette kind of on a transparent background and the trash can. So then I basically did generative fill and I put rocking chair. And then
Oh,
it basically filled
great.
the background, put a rocking
Yeah.
chair up, and then
Totally different mood altogether.
correct. Let me see if I could find it really quick. Uh,
That's
da, da, da,
funny.
da, da.
I mean, I can definitely see it in my head. It's just one of those things that, especially somebody who strives to shoot and film, they hope to get what they have.
Mhm.
Oh my God, a wedding and film is even more challenging.
Oh
But
no, for sure.
I have friends like that too. They don't delve too much into post editing, composite, and I save them on those bases alone. But in
Yeah,
reality, AI saved them because it's so easy.
yes. And then
It's so
she said
easy and fast.
her instant response like, "Oh my God, you did that so quick."
Yeah.
Like and I was
I'm
just like,
like,
"Oh,
I would just want to have like AI parties and be like, sit in front of the computer and edit your work because it's
yeah,
just very chill
for
and very
sure."
fast. Hmm.
And like I'm mentioning in this fact too, I was like, I'm scrolling to see if I could find this photo. I'm gonna find it.
That's fine
Um,
if we don't. But yeah, it's one of those things I was curious about because I mean, I can see that you have a close relationship with your client. So, you understand you both artists. There's a whole nother level, but definitely AI is much more of a strong conversation currently in our industry, and
mhm.
it's not so much so like a good understanding in public opinion. I would say there's a dialogue that's very combative, but there isn't like a strong understanding of like, oh, what are the details? What can we do?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for our workflow? And how does that change my possibilities when I imagine something, right? Like your client just imagined this. This was in her mind.
Correct.
And
And
you've been
trust me, I've
using
even for video stuff, I sometimes have to create well, there's websites that let you look up references, but
Mhm.
sometimes you just want to create your own references and just display it for the client and put it on a mood
for
board
pitching. Yeah.
for pitching for sure.
Awesome.
And it helps. And at the same time, one thing that I would say is that I take the language as same as in the same cadence as when the phone came out. The phone
Oh my
came out,
God. Yeah.
everyone's just like, oh my God, this is gonna like what is
Yeah.
this? It's gonna ruin our lives. And
Totally.
now it's a tool for everything.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and yeah. And you've been in the
Sorry, go ahead.
space too where like we'll be on a panel and people will ask us, it's like, well, everyone's taking photos now. What do you feel about your job? And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's great. Like we
It's
all have a
great.
story to tell. Like that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I love
And
that.
I
We
feel
have some
like
new folks
mhm,
on the chat. I want to say hello. Isa, Caroline, Joshua. We're curious. How do y'all feel about the introduction of AI? Are you finding yourself learning new tools, especially here on in Photoshop? It's going to be a recurring conversation here on Wednesday, so be sure to tune in as we continue to talk about this. But I'm curious, right?
amazing.
Like, how is it for y'all? Yeah, Navy. It's an interesting thing to adapt. I think it's definitely reinvented a lot of my workflows.
Oh, it's 100%. Like my for my video stuff, not much.
Yeah,
Besides
the background.
Premiere having the audio features. Oh my God, that's
Right.
life
Those launched
changing.
yesterday.
Yeah, and also having sorry, let me see Rocky
Yeah, for those of
Coastal
you folks
Rocks.
who haven't heard about it, we have some
Bring
cool new features, new audio features powered by AI in Premiere Beta. So download Premiere Beta and explore it, have fun with it, and most of all, give feedback because it's a beta version. So feedback is welcome.
No, I think sometimes we forget how much of a powerhouse it's Adobe and what we work with. It doesn't seem to like my
Totally.
rocks. I don't know. It keeps not wanting to rock with them. And I'm like, I'm right, all right. So whatever. So what we'll do is just kind of like burn these babies up a little bit. And so where are we?
This is kind of reminding me of like a few scenes I captured in Japan
Oh,
where
really?
there's like these beautiful arches. So they kind of look like they're just standing on the water. They're not quite, but they
Ah, I
feel
see
that
what you mean.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it has, kind of that ornamental look also.
So I
It makes
tried
it look very important, right?
this. See if we could just rasterize it and see if we could darken these a bit.
And these could be flowers, they could be anything. Um,
What I'm
just
using now is
continue to generate.
the burn tool to kind of emphasize the rocks a little bit
Oh,
because
okay.
it seems that it's not gonna like blending my rocks together. And I could just duplicate these and add my own reflection to them, but you could kind of get creative, as most creative as you can.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
because
the
they kind
burn
of
tool, I don't
yeah.
often use it, and I honestly should because I
No,
really think
photographers
it.
use it a lot. Yeah. So
Yeah,
this is what we had before, and this is what we have now with the burn tool. It kind of
it
feels like it belongs there now.
right because like those highlights and the contrast, I imagine that was
Hmm.
what you had it on. Yeah,
Yeah.
the midtones, that's what it looks like up there.
Hmm.
Midtones. Yeah, when you do that, it always makes something stand out because it's a light illusion. Um, so that uh, light contrast you're achieving makes it feel like the pixels are stronger somehow.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can totally see it better. It's way more
Where
visible.
are we at? What's this frame at? There we go. Let me see if we get more into this frame again.
Yeah, the
Oh,
burn
interesting.
tools actually directly it directly comes from film, right? Because you have to
Wow.
burn in the process of developing a film
Oh, and
image.
that's the other thing. Even if you guys want to
Yeah.
nitpick, go back and learn about film. You know how much processing they have to do manually, sometimes painting frames and darkening shades and
Yeah.
everything. So they've been photoshopping things for a while. You will be surprised on how many films now get imprinted on film. So I believe Batman, several other films were not shot on film, but there's a process where they imprint it on film to get the film stock quality and the grain.
Mm.
So they
We just
literally,
love that nostalgia, you
yeah,
know? We
they
love
just
it.
shoot it digital and then they print it on film and you kind of get that look. Instead of
Totally.
adding a filter, they kind of go through the process. It's respectable. So gotta
We
get it.
have about, I think, 10 minutes left.
Okay.
Um,
Let's see
and
what
yeah,
we
you
got.
can you can kind of run us through some of the process that you've been doing so far for those folks who didn't get to join in, which by the
Sure.
way, you can always restream this. But yeah, we'll let Navy kind of walk you through some of the cool steps that we've already embarked on.
For sure. So, uh, we use Firefly to kind of get some inspiration. I don't think I closed that window, did I? No, I didn't. It's still here. Um, and I use Firefly to create a template for what I was trying to represent to my client. So I came in here and while already experiencing with several different prompts, this is the prompt that I came up with that gave me exactly near to what I wanted to generate, which was
Mm,
something in the arts of this frame right here, stages. I was trying to
that's so pretty.
compose something like this, and then I generated this, and the goal was to create a composite of the artist Nati in the water, wearing a dress, looking at her sister's painting. And then through different variations, we were building on it. We put her on there, we changed her dress. Uh, we got rid of the background. We wanted to impose the frame back in. So created a mock-up where the frame was coming out of the water through a door. I was gonna put it back here and it didn't really work out. Created a
There's
sunset
so
to create a
much
contrast.
conceptual thinking here
Yeah.
in
I
order to
overlaid
generate
the
this.
photo, created the frame, looked very solid, as you can tell. uh, moved it down a bit, blended it together, and then
Wow.
revision basically composited this whole thing
Yeah.
oh, I actually created a little video. There you go.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
There it is.
Caroline says, so far I use AI mostly for photo touch-ups
Okay, yeah.
or expanding a background, kind of like what you did there for bleed to print. Cool.
Hmm.
That's very technical. So for printing, making sure you have that extended area where to
Wow,
trim.
wow. Yeah,
Very
yeah.
smart, Caroline. I look forward to exploring more with AI. Yeah, hopefully you get inspired by Navy's workflow here in compositing because it's
And then,
definitely a
like I
different
said,
workflow.
this is all experimental. Like I
Yeah.
have not sat down on Photoshop for a while. I edit on Lightroom for my photos, and I come in and do some
Yeah.
retouching.
Oh,
Um,
Lightroom.
yes.
We love Lightroom.
And then, but I haven't had to kind of create
No.
something from scratch. And
Mm.
I was able to blend all my past lives in one experience. And,
How
Nati
cool.
was able to give me that. So I took
Yeah.
a photo of her here in my studio and, brought it online, brought it on Photoshop, created a concept with her and built on it. And I wanted to show you different examples that I had. So let me, now this is gonna get tricky. So remember I told you
I
I
always get to this
composited her.
place where I show off my very organized folders.
So we created I created a composite because creating AI, a full image, a full body does not give you the best proportions. The
Right.
fingers are not the best. So you see this, the proportions are a little off, and it's gonna get there. And then
It's a good
from my
hack, in my
experience,
opinion.
yeah, it
You
led
did
me
great with that.
to create different parts. So these are the concepts from Firefly. This is their original, and
It's
then
very
we got
close.
this. I selected her I did that on Photoshop. Selected her and then just put her on white. These are the different frames. So after I went through these frames options down here, all generated online. Like these frames look so cool to me. I was just like, I wish I could keep that art. But it got me where I am, which I'm really proud of. So when we got the door, I kind of wanted to blend it a little bit. And as I showed you the example we had here with the rocks and the reflection, I started building on that. So then I went and drew some rocks in, and later I took them off. Then I put the mist on, and the mist kind of resulted to what we have here, which would
Oh,
look is
there's
like
the mist. Yeah.
submerging out of the water. Um,
Yeah.
and
I feel like I've been dissecting elements like that a whole lot more because of AI. So elements
mhm,
like clouds, fog, mist, rain, things that can be blended together, plants,
mhm,
moss, ocean, waters. Like those are usually not the main character in your story,
yeah.
but they're the little elements that can help things blend together perfectly.
Yep. And this is me. This is basically all doodling. I'm creating my own stock. So I am
Oh,
creating,
interesting.
I overlaid the image and then I used generative fill to create ripples to kind of build on what I wanted. As you can tell,
Can you
like
show
you
us one of
kind of,
those? They're kind of cool in themselves as
yeah.
textures.
Oh, for sure.
Like if you wanted to overlay them
Hmm.
in the future.
And let me see if
It's so
it's
pretty.
gonna be a rough one to create now, but let me see if we could do it. Uh, so the same way we created the reference shot that we have here, where Firefly, there you go. So when you generate something here, an image here on Firefly 1, you could go in and let's say we want this one. Actually, let me do this one. Edit. We could do reference image, and you see this like 50%. It's
Yeah.
well, you
Right, you
don't see
showed
it's
us that.
50%. You could this method. You could do it on Photoshop too. It's just a
Oh,
lot
so
harder.
cool.
Um,
You got a Maxwell here saying this is inspiring me to start exploring AI tools for
right.
video as well. That's
Yeah, you could.
awesome.
You could
And
100%.
I'm just gonna answer Caroline's question. Uh I think they had a particular question about whether we can use this for commercial use since you are using it with a client, maybe.
Correct.
Yeah, we couldn't for a while there, but we can now.
Hmm.
So, yeah, feel welcome to do that. We had a big launch on that. So, yes, good
No, and
news,
then
Caroline.
Adobe does a good job at embedding basically all the metadata that it is needed,
Yeah, right,
um,
right.
which is great.
Content credentials.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That is the
So,
proper word for
Navy,
it.
as
Yeah.
we're nearing the end, do you mind telling us where we can reach you, where we can learn more about your future projects and get in contact with you? Should we have any future questions
Oh,
and
sure.
curiosities?
No,
Yeah.
my name is my full name is Neivy Hilario.
Hmm.
My short name is Navy, and that's also my email, my name, my brand, my
That's
Instagram.
awesome.
Uh,
Easy peasy.
you could find me on Instagram directly. If anyone, so that's my name right here, and that's my Instagram directly.
I've always liked your
Um,
portrait.
Appreciate
So,
it. I took
so
that for my
elegant.
birthday last year, and my birthday's in 2 days, so now I got to come up with a better one.
Oh, that's awesome. Glad
Um,
to hear it.
and then it's actually here somewhere. Where is it? Right here. And
Yeah,
when
because
people, I'm not
you
logged
work
in.
on different things. So definitely folks check out
Hmm.
Navy's work is really versatile and very devoted, I can tell.
100%. I do. My focus right now is video, but I said background in graphic design and photography, and I still experiment, as you can tell. And that's how we are. We multi-layered, and don't feel
Yeah.
free to experiment. Ask
Yeah.
friends. Like this opportunity was because, I was like, you know what? Let's try it out, and we tried it out. So I appreciate
Yeah.
it 100%.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Yeah. This has been awesome. Thank you so much, Navy, for showing us your workflow, all those different insights. And thanks everyone for being part of this session today and participating on the chat. Coming up next, calling all the comics and enthusiasts and gamers. Tune in live as we show a spotlight on the talent of game developer Jonah Loeb and get inspired on his amazing creative journey and all the insights into the realm of comics. Again, thank you, Navy, for showing us all of these amazing tools. And thanks, chat. See y'all next time.